Welcome to the Mrs. Turner podcast. I'm your host, Sarah, and in this episode, we are going to be going through the assignment Grieving the Losses from my recovery guide, a life recovery guide for spouses by Melissa Haas, edited by Debbie and Mark Lacer. And I'm just going to pick through a couple of the things that really stood out to me from this assignment, and I will also share my recovery work that I went through with this assignment. There are a couple of different perspectives offered throughout the book from Norm, Melissa, and Debbie. And the one I relate most to throughout the book is Norm, which I thought was interesting because he's a male spouse recovering from the losses and the impact of his female addict wife from her addiction. So I thought that was interesting. Something that he mentions here at the beginning is, in the days that followed, I didn't know what to do. My world had been turned upside down. Just going through the daily motions of life was difficult. Further on in the assignment, the author writes, I look back at that time in my life and wonder how in the world I survived. Troy's betrayal was worse than a death in many ways. And I definitely relate to that as well. I said before in my video sharing about my husband coming forward with his addiction to me, and I felt like he had died. It was a very deep, soul-shaking kind of effect that it had on me. So, continuing through the assignment, they ask you to make a list of the feelings that you have felt as you grieved the losses associated with your spouse's addictions. The pain and anger that you are experiencing are just as real as your spouse's sinful choices. They ask, what do you think about grieving and what comes to your mind? For me, it's my sister, the end of something and a new way of living, the end of my marriage, emotional roller coaster. They also talk about the stages of grief and the primary emotions that are felt within each of them: shock and numbness, where life may seem to be moving in slow motion and you may seem frozen in a moment of time. And I have experienced that type of grief with miscarriage, with the loss of my sister, and also with my husband's confession. Another stage of grief is the searching or yearning. In that stage, you are overwhelmed by anger, and you may also struggle with feelings of guilt and regret. Why am I not enough? Why couldn't I see that this was happening before it was too late? In this stage of grief, our overwhelming feeling is anger, and sometimes our anger is so great that we lash out both verbally and physically at our spouse. For me, I feared confrontation still so greatly at this point that I lashed out at the kids. I did have a therapy session about that and was recommended to have mom time and wife time, processing my emotions during wife time to keep my children safe from my lashing out, because they did not cause this. It was an issue between my husband and I. The next stage that's discussed is disorientation, where everything you have known has been shaken and you struggle to make sense of life again. In this stage of grief, the primary emotions you feel are anxiety and extreme sorrow. You have come to a place of understanding the reality of the situation, and you're trying to accept the reality and figure out some way to deal with it. You may find yourself moving from despair into depression, isolating yourself, unable to care for yourself or other family members. That's where I was largely when I began my recovery. This disorientation and being stuck in this place of not being able to function. My brain felt like it was shut off for close to a year. You may need medical help in order to make it through this stage of grief, without getting stuck in depression, and I chose to restart taking St. John's wort tincture to help get myself through the depression at that time. The next stage that's discussed is reorganization. At this point in the journey, you can smile again and really mean it. There may be some days where you experience sadness or even twinges of anger, but they occur less and less frequently. Many of the negative feelings have lost their power to overwhelm you, and your wounds are still tender. When I was beginning this book, I bounced largely between disorientation and reorganization. I was asked how long I believed the grief process would last, and at that point I believed it would be a lifelong process. Like the death of my sister, my commitment to my husband was for life, so why would the loss of him, who I knew him as, not also be for life? The grieving process is not linear. You can bounce between anger, numbness, sadness, and then peace. Like, there's no limit on the emotions that you're able to feel throughout the grieving process, and you're not going crazy. You are simply grieving. If you have unhealed wounds from your past, in addition to the betrayal of your spouse, it will probably take you longer to grieve. But there is good news. Grieving is just a season. It is not the end of your life. They ask you to do a daily check-in exercise when you're going through this 7-week cycle of grieving, where every day you write down, today I feel, and then you write in a feeling word. When I feel this way, the thoughts that go through my head are, when I feel this way and think these thoughts, what I want to do is, my choice today is, and my prayer today is. Journaling is very important during recovery, and during the beginning I found myself journaling near daily, and the grieving specifically was incredibly important for me to journal through. It is a way of being able to connect with God. A lot of my journaling is written in such a way that it's almost like a letter. I often have a writing style where I'm writing to other people, even though it's a journal, it's only my thoughts. It's not for others to read, but that's how it comes out. So a lot of times I have journaled prayers, and I did a lot of prayer journaling during our first year after the confession. It's important to understand that God is longing for a relationship with you, and it is so amazing to allow Him to comfort you as you grieve. This section is about grieving the losses. So I wrote down in my journal my losses, and I wrote down a list of all of the things that I've lost as a result of my husband's sexual addiction. And it can be in any area of life. This is only my list. Your list may look drastically different. I lost trust in my husband, trust for people in my life. Who I was is gone. I'm less hopeful, so I lost my hope as well. I've lost the connection I had with the kids because they make me think of him. I can no longer share everything with my mom, sisters, ladies from church, or his mom. My spirit and my joy. Laughter doesn't come easily anymore. Being carefree with him, I'm deciphering everything he says. The feeling of being chosen by him, the sanctity of our bed. The vows, oh my Lord, the vows have been broken, and with them my heart. My personality has mellowed, my desire to invite people into our life of love and our home of peace, and our intimacy. And at that time, I did not fully understand the vastness of the intimacy that was lost. We lost any amount of emotional intimacy that we had at that point. And it was draining and devastating. And the things that you lose, the emotions that you don't think you'll ever experience, and then you do. It's something that's impossible for me to describe. This is the grieving section, and no bit of it is comfortable or easy, and it is drawing a lot of awareness to the hurting and broken points in your heart. I hope that you will take an opportunity today to write down what losses you have experienced with your own spouse's sexual addiction or with your sexual addiction. Grieving is important for both sides, the offended and the offender. I hope that this episode has been helpful to you in some way. Please like it if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it. If you're on a podcast platform, please leave it a 5-star rating. Leave a comment if you'd like to communicate about this further, and please share it with a friend that you think could benefit from it.